Hello, everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer, and I'm the host of Own Your Wellness, and I'm excited to be here today. I got to tell you, I haven't been feeling well for the last few days, and it's nice to be back. It's nice to be feeling 100% again. It's kind of interesting when you don't feel well, but you don't feel like you're on your deathbed. It's like, how much work do I do and how much do I put off? But no matter what, was going to be here for you guys. So let me introduce my guest. Her name is Jackie Bebenroth. Welcome, my new friend. How are you?
Hi, Julianne. I'm great. And for someone who hasn't been feeling well, you look great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's weird for me too, because I've got basically perfect health almost all of the time. So it was bizarre. It really kind of took me out. But enough
Sure.
about me. We're here to talk with you. So I would love for you to tell the audience a bit about yourself and your own wellness journey.
Sure. So my name's Jackie Bebenroth. I own an advertising agency and I'm a self-titled change agent. And the reason why I've sort of assigned that title to myself is that my agency works with clients in nutrition and wellness, and we help them understand how to better communicate with their clients and patients so that they can have a more transformational impact and a long-term relationship with them. Because as you know, wellness is a journey, not a destination.
That is so true. And part of the reason why I really wanted you to be on the show today is because marketing gets kind of a bad rap. And I love the idea of, the understanding or just changing the meaning a little bit instead of I'm trying to sell you something to I am trying to communicate something with you. It's a back and forth kind of a
Sure.
process. And I love the idea that, that you're in the health and wellness industry as well, because obviously that's what we do here. So tell us a little bit more about being a change agent.
Yeah, so we believe that change happens as a cyclical process, not a linear process. So, what that means is, culture has led us to believe that there's a before and there's an after, right? But
Yeah.
in between the before and after, there's like all of these starts and stops and commitments and perceived failures, and
Mhm.
there's all of this that goes into that. So transformation really requires constant communication and touch points with people in order to help them understand, number one, why they're making this change in their life, and number
Mhm.
two, how to measure the quick wins and progress along the way. And if that communication is there, our data shows that these people who buy into whatever this wellness program might be are going to sustain their progress over time
Mhm.
instead of expecting the world and then quitting and dropping out when they don't get it, you know.
I love the idea of celebrating the small wins because nobody does that these days.
Right.
It's kind of like if you don't enjoy the journey, how do you expect to enjoy the destination? And I've never really understood that because the whole point is living. So that's what you're doing right now. If you're waiting for something to in order to feel a certain way, then you're always going to be waiting. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh my gosh, I have to share this quick story with you. I just heard Ed Viesturs speak in person. And have you ever heard of him? He's a mountaineer.
Yes, I have heard of him.
Okay, so he is one of those amazing people who have summited all of the 8,000 plus meter
Mhm.
mountains in the world. And it took him many times to summit Everest. And this is what he said that I thought was really interesting. When you go from like ground, like the zero to the first base camp and the first base camp to the second base camp, that trip actually involves a number of trips back and forth to carry your gear up to the next base camp. So you're not just summoning Everest in one fell swoop. You're like going up and down and back and forth, all of these different base camps for weeks at a time, and you might not even reach the top. And his whole point in saying that was if you don't enjoy the process, you will never enjoy the destination, right? So it's all about really enjoying those moments in the process to getting where you want to be.
Well, yeah, it's little things too. And I was talking about what a weirdo I was as a kid the other day, and because I was an odd duck. But one of the things was I used to have to take care of my cats in the morning, and my cats lived in the basement when we weren't home, basically. So they had this whole room, I mean, it was wonderful. But to get to the basement, I had to go outside and go around the outside of the house to get downstairs into the basement. And we lived in the woods. So I would be walking along and I'd like looking at the leaves and listening to the birds. And mind you, this is, probably 6:30 in the morning, and I'm a teenager, so I'm barely awake. But even then I remember thinking to myself, oh my goodness, am I even going to remember this moment in my life? This is special. Like where I am right now, the sound of my feet crunching on the ground, what's that going to be like? Because it's not always going to be like this. And so to just sit there and appreciate every little thing, even though I didn't necessarily want to be up at 6:30 in the morning feeding my cats outside, I could
Sure.
still appreciate the fact that it was beautiful. I had these creatures to love, all of these things that, are part of the journey. So I just think that that's such an important thing to acknowledge.
Yeah, that's a great story, and it really sort of sums up that point of being in the moment and being where you are, when you're there,
Mhm.
and taking that all in and appreciating it, and I believe that's easier said than done, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, we're not even wired to think positively. So, what is it?
Mhm.
60,000 thoughts a day, and 80% of them are negative, and they're repeating
Yeah,
thoughts. So it's kind of okay. We've got these neural pathways that are built in telling us all these negative things over and over again. So it kind of,
yeah.
takes a little time to just sit there and be like, okay, I'm all right. I'm all right in this moment. Everything's good right now, right here.
Absolutely. And especially for, like, high performing people who, like, it's just never good enough, right? Like, you gotta raise the bar and raise the bar, and I don't know about you, but I suffer from that sometimes where, like, it doesn't feel like it's good enough, but guess what? You
Yes.
know, it really is.
And that's why the celebrating those small wins comes in handy. Is because, okay, you don't even realize what you've accomplished. And so, I don't know if you're familiar with Blaine Bartlett, but he's an amazing entrepreneur and speaker as well. And I actually had the honor of hearing him speak at the World's Greatest Motivators, the taping a couple years ago. And he was actually on my show as well, like about a year ago. So anyway, an amazing guy. And I'll never forget him talking about, and this is somebody who's highly successful, talking about, the same thing, how success, we think it's always supposed to be like this, going straight up, but it's never, it's always up and down. And there's, all this, like base camp,
Yeah.
going back and forth, same
Oh, yeah.
idea. I just think that when you
Definitely.
can celebrate those things and realize, okay, well, or even maybe take out the idea of failure and be like, okay, maybe that didn't work best for me. What did I learn?
Mhm.
Wouldn't you
Yeah,
say?
and this is such an important conversation for your internal monologue, right? So
Mhm.
when you're attempting something as it relates to your personal growth and you stop doing it,
Mhm.
whatever habit you want to pick up, maybe it was a New Year's resolution or something, right? It's not about, I failed at that. The mindset is really, okay, what did I learn from that? And how can I
Mhm.
take that one thing, at least one thing from that experiment and move it into the next attempt, whether it's in that same vein or, another personal growth goal altogether.
So why do you think that change is so hard for so many people?
I don't know that they're managing their expectations for themselves. And I know that's the case for me. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but, our data is very much telling us that because change is cyclical and people assume it to be linear,
Mhm.
then they get disappointed in themselves for not reaching the transformation that they wanted to occur,
Mhm.
just because they didn't have it in their mindset that, oh, this is going to take a couple of different tries and a couple different experiments to help me get to where I want. And we don't think as a society, especially today with instant self-gratification, we don't think long term.
Mm-hmm.
And it really has to be a long-term mindset, but a commitment to enjoying the process and exploring the experiments along the way.
Oh, I love that word experiments because then it makes it fun.
Yeah.
I love
Oh,
the
yeah.
idea of, yeah, being the experiment. Okay, does this work? It's kind of like Einstein. Was it like how many thousands of times he tried with the light bulb and all that? Oh my goodness. You just never know. But I like that idea of experimenting and saying, or, because I do that in the kitchen and other places, like it's fun. It
Sure.
makes it, not so much pass and fail or, yeah. And something else I keep on thinking about is that before and after,
Mhm.
because, think about even those weight loss shows, for example, there's the before
Yeah.
picture and the after picture. And even these people who, have signed up for this, and this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, even they in the process, they're like, I don't want to do this.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that people don't realize that that's normal to feel that way. It's not any indication that you need to give up. It's not
Mhm.
any indication that your path is wrong. It's just
Yeah.
you don't feel like it.
Yeah, and life gets in the way, right? And let's not forget about that, like, you can have all the internal fortitude in the world, but, maybe, something happens externally, like, one of your family members gets sick, God forbid, or something happens where it just turns everything on its head, and then the fortitude goes out the window.
Mhm.
Um, and the thought has to be, okay, this was a great experiment. I understand that I'm going to cycle through a number of experiments, and that as long as I'm taking lessons learned with me, that's where the larger growth and the personal growth, because what's happening is you're expanding your comfort zone.
Mhm.
Every step, every experiment is one step outside of your comfort zone. So the next time you try something, you have more capacity for it and you have lessened the fear associated with that new thing, right?
Ooh, I love that. I never even thought about it, but it does. It makes the pool bigger.
It does.
Instead of
Yeah.
being like itty bitty, it gets bigger. Oh, I love that idea. Oh man. So what you're saying is, well, it's the one change or the one thing that's constant is change, I guess. But
Mhm.
yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that a lot of it has to do with what's going on in here, like mindset and perception. But
Yeah,
I actually have a marketing question for you. And
sure.
this is for people who maybe they're trying to find something that's actually going to help them,
Mhm.
maybe change and transform their lives and their, the way that they live and that sort of thing. And they're looking for products in the health and wellness industry. What are some things that maybe they should be looking for? Because a lot of people feel duped.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I will tell you, thank you for asking that question because that is part of the reason why, 23 years into my career, I really wanted to focus on this industry of nutrition and wellness, not only because I have a personal interest in it,
Hmm.
but I feel like the industry has been attempting to trick people for the
Hmm.
sake of click through on their ads and converting people to buy something and then washing their hands of it and walking away.
Hmm.
And so what I would say is number 1, consumers are more educated than ever before, and I'm sure your audiences are as well. Never ever trust an instant claim. Anything that
Hmm.
says instant, walk away from it entirely. There's never going to be an instant transformation,
No.
no matter how bad you want it, right? Um, and secondly, I would also be very cautious around the reviews.
Mm.
We've seen brands that are moving forward with buying their testimonials. We call them fake-amonials.
I love
And
that.
and
Testimonial.
it really is. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And that's not to say you shouldn't jump in and look for a quick win, but maybe that
Mhm.
quick win is much smaller than promised. Maybe that skincare program isn't going to take 10 years off your face, but if you notice a glow and you're getting compliments 2 weeks later, maybe it is working a little bit, right? So it's just, again, it's about managing your own expectations about those promises.
I think that that's a really good point because, we live in a microwave society where we want everything
Mhm.
right now. And it's like, let's take wrinkles, for example.
Right.
You didn't get them overnight.
Right.
So even if you burn them off, like your skin off, you still have to recover. So, there's
Yeah.
there's all these different things that nothing is going to be perfect, and expecting to
Right.
look like a 16-year-old again when you're 50 is probably unrealistic.
Yeah. Yeah, although I do have a 16-year-old here in the house. Well, she's 15 going on 25. But sh like, I look at her skin and I'm like, "Oh," you know? Just
Yes.
glorious.
And I think too, and this kind of goes back to appreciating what you have, and,
Yeah.
small wins, as well as, there's times when I was younger and I was probably, I don't know, 19, 20 years old. And I genuinely thought that I was fat. I genuinely thought that I was,
Yeah.
overweight. And I even looked at pictures and would think I was overweight. And then
Mhm.
I didn't see those same pictures for maybe 5 or 10 years. And I saw them again. And I thought, oh my goodness, what's wrong with me? If only I was that thin again, even though I wasn't even fat at that point. But
I get it. I know.
it's like we don't necessarily even see ourselves how we are. So,
Right.
it's kind of goes back to that same thing. Like, you don't have to believe every single thought that you have either when it comes to
Yeah.
yourself. And just celebrate the things that you love. I don't know. To me, I just want to harp on that a second because I just find it, especially when you're trying to make a transformation of sorts, to really focus on those wins.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like, I think you have a really good point in that, there's gotta be a certain level of acceptance and self-love
Mhm.
that is foundational to who you are in order to, really walk through the world with grace and confidence and peace of mind, and I'm not here to tell anybody how to achieve that, because I'm still working on that myself. But what I will say is that, I think there's a difference between complacency
Mhm.
and personal growth,
Mhm.
activities, right? And so I try to live in that spectrum between the 2, where it's like, I'm okay with who I am and what I do and what I have and all of
Mhm.
these things, but I keep wanting to push myself just to be a little better and a little better, and I'm never telling myself, I will be happy when I achieve this. Like, I try to
Yeah.
have that, but without having and gosh, I've never really said this publicly to anybody, but I do have this, like, fear of complacency. Like, I part of me
Me
just keeps
too.
wanna put I think it's my personality style. I just wanna push and push and push, where you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's just okay to, like, "Okay, everything's great
Well,
right now."
and I think that what you're saying is a really, really good point. And I love to give this example. Um, you can love something or yourself completely and still want to improve and be better. But here's the
Right.
thing: if you are doing something like, example, losing weight from the place of I'm broken, I need to fix this in order to feel good, I need to do this to be better, you're really doing yourself a disservice. And this is something that I keep on talking about lately. I don't know why it's so important to me lately, but here's
Mhm.
the idea: when was the last time you took really good care of something that you didn't like?
Oh, right.
When was the last time you took extra care and put, something that you hated first? you don't do that. So if you don't
Right.
respect yourself, if you don't love yourself, if you don't, if you're not coming from a place of that, then
Mhm.
no matter what, you at some point you're going to put yourself last. Because you don't even care about yourself.
Yeah.
So,
No, I love that perspective because and it kind of resonates with what, one of my coaches told me this once. She said, you really have to look at your workouts like a self this is a part of self-care,
yeah.
right? And I kept looking at it as more of like consequences to actions.
Yes.
Like, oh, I had a binge weekend or the
Mhm.
holidays and I have to work out more. That's not it at all. Like that mindset shift really got me out of like trying to overcome what I perceived as like problems to be more like
Mhm.
I'm putting myself first. And as a result, I have been more consistent with my exercising after that perception change, you know?
Yes, and I love that so much because first of all, exercising to correct a bad diet doesn't work.
No.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
PS
work.
doesn't work.
But here's the thing too that I always think about, like when it comes to exercise, it's kind of like I don't debate whether or not I'm going to brush my teeth.
Right.
I don't debate it. If
Yeah,
I'm in bed and I'm ready for bed and I'm already about ready to fall asleep and I realize I forgot to brush my teeth, guess what? I'm getting up and I'm brushing my teeth whether I feel like it or not. It's not up for
yeah,
debate.
that's right.
So when
Yeah,
you make certain habits and things non-negotiable, then it doesn't matter if you feel like it or not. It's just like you said, self-care. It's, I
yeah,
love myself enough to keep my teeth. I love myself enough to keep this vessel in tip-top shape.
that's right.
No, I
Yeah,
love
and
that.
also, like, it aligns with my personal values around health. Like, I really
Mhm.
truly value my health, and especially with what we've seen in the pandemic, and, I never wanna take my health for granted. I want to show up in the world as a healthy person,
Mhm.
and because I identify as a healthy person, I'm going to take on the habits that healthy people take. That was a
Yes.
big concept I've taken away from, James Clear and his Atomic
Yep.
Habits book. It's like I am a voter. I don't go vote.
Yeah.
Like, it's about what you identify with in terms of your values and less about the actions.
Exactly. And it's like I've never been a smoker, but it would never even dawn on me, some thoughts that would be, if I was trying to quit, I would it makes more sense to
Yeah.
just call myself a non-smoker, especially if I'm, wanting to not smoke anymore because like you said, you take on the identity of that and it's just like I would never think about, going out for a smoke break. It would never even dawn on me. So, but if I was trying to quit, it would.
You bet, you bet. And I have a similar story around alcohol. So, someone who really changed my perception around alcohol is Annie Grace, and I don't know if you're familiar with her, program. She has a book called, This Naked Life, and then she also has a supplement book called The 30-Day Alcohol Experiment.
Yes,
And
I do
her
know that
thing
book.
yeah. So her whole thing was her personal story was around, like, I never identified as an alcoholic. Even if I
Mhm,
did, like, technically qualify as an
mhm,
alcoholic, to me, if I say to myself, "I'm an alcoholic," that means I'm a problem, right?
mhm.
Versus identifying as a non-drinker. And so
Yeah,
just this slight shift in language and moving from "I'm an alcoholic" to "I'm a non-drinker" allowed her to overcome and start to experiment with what sober life might be like, and she ended up building a whole program around it, which I personally have benefited from, and I think it's, one of those quick win kind of, methods, you know?
yeah, absolutely. Well, you don't know this about me, but I had a huge drinking problem, and I did the whole rehab thing and AA and all of that, but haven't and it works. I'm not putting it down. I am never gonna put it down. However, for me, I'm just a non-drinker.
Yeah.
And I don't identify as an alcoholic. I never really have, um, because I just don't drink. And I'll never forget one of the therapists, because I also used to work in an addiction rehab. And she said, because nobody that goes in there thinks that they're an alcoholic or a drug addict, or they think they get stopped. And she's like, okay, then just never pick it up again. And I'm like, okay. I mean, like, okay, no problem for me. But, I love that idea, because I don't want to sit there, because like an alcoholic drinks, I don't. So how am I? Yeah, I love that perception change, because like you said, that's a problem, and I'm not a problem. Those choices those choices I made were a problem, but I don't make those choices anymore.
Yeah, and fortunately, you were able to get the right support at the right time, and really good for you.
Yeah, exactly. But even looking back, I probably didn't need all that, but I'm so glad it was my experience, because it was kind of like the AED paddles where I jumped back into life, But it's interesting too, because my boyfriend, right before we met about 2 years ago, he had just read that book and decided that he was going to do that, because he was thinking, maybe I've been drinking too much and all that. And he hasn't picked up since we've been together either. And it was all because that's what started. It was that book.
It really was so good. And I've done so many dry months. Like, I've done everything from like dry July to sober-tober. I've done dry January, of course. And not because I perceive myself to have a problem, but because I have this cognitive dissonance around my identity as a healthy person, yet someone who might drink every day.
Yeah.
I am in advertising, right? So there's a whole show around drinking and advertising. So I want to drink less. I wanted to drink less. So I picked up that book. And really where that led me to, getting back to sort of this idea that change is cyclical, is that through those cycles of 30-day alcohol experiments, I was gaining my confidence in learning how to manage my stress in different ways.
Exactly.
And so within maybe a couple years of that, I decided, both my husband and I, we did a year of sobriety. And it happened to be 2020, and we didn't know what was coming. But it actually turned out to be easier, because there was no happy hours happening, right? So we did a year of sobriety, and I don't know that I could have done that without, number one, either a rock bottom moment in sort of a rehab type of path, or just recognizing that I can do better here. So I'm going to try a couple of different experiments and see where this takes me.
I love that. On that note, we are going to go to a commercial break. So we'll be back in just a moment. Thank you so much, Jackie. It's been so much fun already.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. As I mentioned, we do have to go to commercial break. But for those of you who are watching us live, I want to give a shout out and say hello, and say that we will be right back after these messages. Are you someone who is struggling to move forward because you suffered a loss? Maybe you're even finding it difficult to complete the most basic tasks. Are you looking for a way to start enjoying life again without feeling guilty or the resistance to do so? Spiritual life coach Sarah Stockham saw a need for people who haven't learned how to grieve without putting their entire lives on pause. And so she created a program that solves this issue called Choosing Life Right Now. This program is simple, and you can do it on your own. If you are ready to learn how to feel your grief while still being able to smile, to honor the sacredness of what took place as a loss, and yet still continue to live with joy, and if you'd like to take care of your whole being with grace and love, then I'd like to invite you to experience her new program called Choosing Life Right Now. Sarah is currently offering her program for the promotional price of $77. but it won't stay at this price for long. To learn more, check out her website. The address is on the screen.
Now, you can vibrationally align your aura. You can gain a larger and spiritual perspective on life, relationships, God, people, wellness, and money. You can also have moments of meditation and reflection any time of the day. And reading the thrilling, adventurous, and mystical story of Shiga will just add more faith to your daily experience of the mystery of the universe.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. And today's special guest is Jackie Bebenroth. Let's bring her back. Hello. How are you?
Hi, good.
So we've been talking with you a little bit, but we haven't even really touched on marketing or anything like that. So I definitely want to pop on and talk about that. But first of all, what is this that I put up on the screen?
I would love to hear your feedback on our talk today. I've been, I'm a marketer, so I can talk about branding and
Mm-hmm.
uh, content marketing and all kinds of things in my sleep. But talking about change and really sharing some personal stories is relatively new for me. And I'm kind of looking forward to hearing some feedback about what sticks, what doesn't stick, and so I can refine this because I really enjoy these conversations, and I feel like the more I can share, maybe someone will be listening and they'll reach out and I can maybe make a little bit of a difference.
And I love that because what I'm hearing is you have all this knowledge and power and you want to share with other people so that they can transform as well.
Yeah, advertising is kind of a fickle business.
I would think so.
We wake up every day and we're trying to sell people things they don't necessarily want or need. Like that was my old advertising life, and I just feel like this is my second mountain, not to bring another mountain analogy into the conversation, but this is a way for me to try to really create some meaning and purpose around the work, and our intention and focusing in on nutrition and wellness is very important for us as well.
Oh, I love that. And then also, if people want to reach out to you on Instagram, this is your handle. This is how they can reach out. What kind of stuff can they find on your Instagram page?
Oh, so this is really all about our agency, and we do a lot of work with functional medicine
Ooh, I
and
love
the
it.
physicians there. So if you're ever curious about functional medicine, or you're thinking about searching for a functional medicine doctor, we've got a lot of great information around that journey and experience there.
That's fascinating because I was just talking about that with one of my clients and she wanted to learn more. So I'm going to send her your way.
Absolutely, yeah.
That is awesome. I love that. So, we've been talking a lot about change, and what do you think is something that people can do to help themselves along the process? I mean, we've talked about it being cyclical, which is very important, but are there little things that maybe you wish that you would have known in the beginning of maybe making a change from one type of marketing to specializing in this, for example? Or what's something that you think that people should know?
Well, I think that in order for change to stick, it has to be intentional, and that seems
Mm,
like common sense, but it can't just be something that you hear somebody else did and you're like, "Oh, that sounds cool, and then I'm gonna make these changes." It's not gonna stick.
mhm,
Science shows, and I've studied uh, behavioral change, in order to help our clients, uh, and one of the theories that I've really held on to is this concept of the trans-theoretical model of change, and it
hmm.
sounds way more complicated than it is. But basically, the 2 psychologists in the '70s studied what was the trick for making people quit smoking? Like,
Mhm,
what was the secret? And what they found was, in studying hundreds of people in their journey of quitting smoking, the ones who did quit smoking had an intention, they researched solutions, they made intentional selections about their course of action, they
mhm,
built a plan, and then they took action. They just didn't go from, "Oh, I wanna quit smoking," to, "Oh, I quit smoking." There's a lot of building and intention that goes into that action before the action happens. And then once the action happens, then it's about sticking with the program and constantly looking for information and metrics associated with your progress in that area. So, for example, with smoking, it might be, "Oh, I don't snore anymore," or, "Oh, that
yes.
raspy cough has gone away," or whatever it is, or, I can suddenly jog again," or something,
Yeah, or
you know?
taste my food.
Yeah, and having appreciation for those moments, but, like, now I believe that having that built within your plan should
Mhm,
be your benchmarks for your progress. So if you're seeing a functional medicine doctor, for example, your doctor should be prepared to tell you what data, whether it's in your blood
mhm.
panel or in your own personal journaling, to help you understand the progress along the way, because otherwise you're gonna get lost in the journey, and that little, voice in your head is gonna take over, and it doesn't take much.
It really doesn't take much to lose the way, but no, I just think that that is such a good point to make, because I don't know if you're familiar with John Assaraf, but something that he says, and I love it, love it, love it, is, are you interested or are you committed? And there's such
Mm,
a huge
so
difference, because it's like, oh yeah, I want to lose 10 pounds and so did it like this, I'll try that. And then when it doesn't work out exactly as you think it does, or something pops up in life and you give up, and then you think it was the diet that did that.
yeah.
and it's and then you'll try something else. Whereas no, you were interested, but you weren't committed.
Yeah, and sometimes being committed, when you get into it, you learn that you're actually you're committed for a different reason than it was when you started.
Yes. 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 And I always think of that too. It's kind of like, let's take losing weight, for example. We might say, oh, I want to be healthy. No,
Mhm,
really, you want to feel sexy in that dress
yeah,
because you want your relationship with your husband to improve, or whatever the case may
mhm.
be. But it's rarely what like you said, it's so rarely what it starts out as. And then, yeah.
I will speak from experience there. In my 20s, I decided to become a Pilates instructor on the side because I couldn't afford Pilates, and I
Smart,
really liked it.
actually.
So I got the training, and then I ended up, working at the studio in the evenings and taking private clients on the weekends and things. And I was a that was my side hustle for about 12 years,
Oh, wow.
and through that experience, I loved watching the journey from interested to committed, because they're interested typically for vanity reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I heard Pilates is going to slim me here. It's going to slim out this bulk, and it's like, sure, yeah, it'll do that. But really, what Pilates does is it gives you a presence, it gives you posture, it helps you sit up straighter and walk with confidence and grace through the world. And ultimately, that's where my long-term clients really stayed with me, because they really valued the grace of just living in their body, even if the initial slimming maybe wasn't as extreme as they had hoped. So,
Well, it's funny too, because a lot of the times people will get that and they're still unhappy because that's not really ultimately what they were after in the first place, which is what we were
right.
just talking about. So it's kind of interesting where, you know, for me is like coming back to like the drinking thing is you should always do it for yourself. I mean, if you're going to quit some sort of habit that is detrimental, that you're addicted to, for example, you know, they always say you have to do it for yourself, because if you don't do it for yourself, it's never going to last. But there's days when, you know, you don't feel like doing it for yourself, or you don't feel like, you know, that's enough. And I will use whatever is in my arsenal to keep me on track. So whatever it is, I'm going to use it.
Yeah, because some days you just have to.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to
exactly. I'm like,
dig deep.
okay, you know. I don't know. I mean, yes, it should be for you always, but sometimes it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to do this because I need to show up for, like, for me, it would be business related.
Mhm.
You know, and I won't feel like making a video, or I won't feel like doing something. And it's like, okay, I need to do this for so and so. And that's
Yeah.
what gets me to do it, because I take myself out of the equation. And sometimes, hey, you know, if that's what it takes to get you through those tough moments, then
Yeah.
by all means, use it.
Yeah, because that builds trust in
Mhm.
yourself. You start to build
Oh,
those little moments of trust. And then suddenly because you have that trust, you have more confidence and courage to kind of keep that going.
you know, and
So I
that's
totally
such an
get that.
important thing too, is that trust, because, you know, how many times have we made promises to ourselves and not followed through? And then we
Right.
don't trust ourselves. And, you know, and I think it does come back to like managing those expectations, you
Mhm.
know, when it comes to like, I know for me, I expect things to, and I expect to do them perfectly. And I mean, how
Yeah.
ridiculous is that? It is
Yeah.
never going to be perfect, first of all.
Uh,
And perfect's boring. And it's like expecting myself to, you know, be able to walk the first time out of the gate. Like I would never talk down to a little baby. Listen, little baby, you know, you can figure it out the first time. You might as well give up
right.
now.
Right. Yeah, I know. That self-shaming and stuff. It's just
Yeah.
and especially for like type A kind of personalities, I totally know that. That's certainly a journey for me as well.
No, I hear you. It's just, it's fascinating. But I kind of want to get back to the marketing a little bit,
Sure.
and you know, with health or nutrition and wellness products, are there some things that I mean, what I'm hearing from you is that the way that you work is that you really want to communicate what the benefits are, and that
Mhm.
like it almost sells itself in a way, because this is what's good and does this work for you, and I want to get it to as many people that would benefit. But not everybody is like that. Like you said, it's a fickle business. Is there any
Yeah.
products that you would recommend, or anything that, you know, at least to take a look at and do their own research on?
Oh, from a wellness product standpoint?
Yeah.
Uh, I am a huge fan of probiotics, and not just because we have a probiotic company on our roster. We've done a lot of intensive research around the understanding of probiotics and the importance of gut health to your
Mhm.
overall well-being. Now, I cannot speak in depth about probiotics, prebiotics, all of the various strains and things, but what I will tell you is, to me, it's one of the easiest things you can do, if you have the money to do it, is, pick up a quality probiotic and, um, start working on your gut health. It's, and even with our work with functional medicine doctors,
Mhm.
all that treatment starts in the gut. You have a cough, let's look at your gut. You have headaches, brain fog, fatigue. We're going to start and we're going to heal the gut and we're going to see some progress and then we're going to go from there.
You know,
So, it's a
yeah,
big
no, I'm
deal.
sorry to interrupt, but also you're angry, you're depressed.
Yeah.
Start with the gut.
Yeah. Who
Oh,
knew?
yeah, who knew? Who knew? I always consider it another brain because it has so much
Mhm.
information and it dictates a lot of how we behave.
Yeah.
Our gut health. That
Yeah,
is
you
such an
bet.
important. Yeah.
Just even like I back in my 20s, I used to change my eating habits because I like you, I wanted to lose a few pounds here and there,
Yeah.
even though, like, I look back at my pictures, I'm like, "What the hell?"
What? Yeah.
But I have since changed to really tailoring my eating habits around how food makes me feel. Sugar makes me really moody.
Yeah, me too.
Coffee makes me really intense,
Yeah.
and so I think about how I wanna show up for the world from the inside out, not necessarily how I wanna look from the outside in, although that's certainly important to me as well.
Oh, yeah, and I'm never gonna put down wanting to look good because why not? But it's
Sure.
not the end all be all, and changing that isn't actually necessarily gonna make you feel better about yourself. I've done it.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
done it, and it feels great for a little while, and then the newness wears off, and I'm still me. So,
Yeah.
it's kinda like that change, it's gotta be up in here. We gotta work on that. Otherwise, it doesn't matter ultimately. It's kind of like the newness wears off, and then it's on to this next thing I've got to fix.
Julianne, that is so important, and that's where I really appreciate your show because that is such a common theme and a message, that I think everybody needs to hear, not just once, but again and again as a reminder.
Exactly. And it's okay to repeat ourselves, even to ourselves.
Right? Yeah,
It's like building those
absolutely.
new neural pathways. You've got to repeat. Otherwise, how are you going to make that smooth and like second nature? It's like you got to practice anything.
Yeah,
It's yeah, and for it to become second nature, for change to become more permanent, you've got to create this new way of being, and it takes practice. That's why everything's considered a practice. Like meditation is a practice, for
yeah,
example, or
you bet.
even professional athletes, they have to practice.
Yeah, and I just, learning how to eat and change my eating habits over time, like, I'm married to a chef. I don't know if
Ooh,
I mentioned that.
no, you
So
didn't mention that.
so being on a diet, so to speak, is almost impossible, and even, like, almost a little disrespectful because he does I mean, his food is incredible. Um, but with that, I still have wanted to experiment with different like, I was a vegetarian for a year
Hmm.
just to see how if it changed the way that I felt.
Hmm.
Um, uh, spoiler alert, it didn't change anything for me. I tried the keto diet for a little while because I felt like I was on this carb sugar kind of
Yeah.
cycle of, like, always craving something. So I
Hmm.
tried that, and, from that, I learned how to eat a little differently, and have more protein-rich sort of foods in my diet, but every single time I've tried one of those things, now I have a new recipe in my repertoire, right? And it's
Yes.
all of those healthy recipes that I've taken away from those restrictive experiments
Hmm.
that contributed to my transformation in terms of how I eat today, and, which is way different than how I
Yeah,
ate, like,
you
15
know,
years ago.
that's the thing too is I don't typically eat meat, and
Mhm.
I will never call myself a vegetarian because if there's a day when I want to eat a hamburger or there's a day that I want to eat a steak, I don't want somebody looking at me going, "Oh, you don't eat meat."
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
But I grew up vegetarian. I grew up, not eating most of these things. So to me, I have to my constitution, the way I'm built, I can't. I literally cannot eat a lot of animal protein because it makes me angry. My body can't process it very well. But that's me, and that's my experience. So that's not like everybody else.
Sure.
So
Sure,
yeah.
but it probably makes it easier for you to, like, lean into, like, more, like, Mediterranean diet or plant-based kind of eating.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. And to me, the way that I like to look at food now is I want quality food
oh, yeah.
and the healthiest version of it. So, if I'm going to say have a hamburger, I want the animal to have been treated well. I want it to have been grass fed and, free range out in the not the wilderness, but, out and about,
You
roaming
bet.
the land as opposed to, cattle that's herded into this tiny little thing that, wasn't treated well, because I am what I eat and what I eat eats. And if
Yeah.
you think about it, like, and this is going to be kind of gross, but if you were a cannibal, for example, would you want to eat someone that, survived on McDonald's and Taco Bell and all of this? Or would you want someone who was healthy and in good shape and lived a great life and wasn't, like living in fear constantly and, all stressed out? Personally, I want that person. Same thing with
For
my
sustenance, yep.
animals. Pretty gross,
Yeah.
but you get the idea.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point, and I will tell you my husband takes this to the extreme, like, he's real into soil health, and he even believes
Yes,
that carrots have a certain vibration to
they
them,
do.
right?
I know.
So
No,
yeah,
I
I get
love
it.
that. I love that, but it's literally how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
Yeah,
Because, you got to start somewhere and,
yeah,
maybe making your own French fries instead of buying them already made is that's a great first step,
yeah,
doing it yourself.
yeah,
So,
you bet.
anyway, we are almost out of time. We've got about 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes left. I'm going to pop this back up again as well. So, you want people to reach out, tell them, or to tell you more about, what stuck with them, correct?
Yeah, I would love any feedback that you have around anything that stuck with you. If you have any questions about some of the topics we covered today, I'm here for it. So
And
hit me up.
even marketing. So if you got a
Yeah.
product out there,
Oh, sure.
maybe that would be a
Yeah.
great thing too. And then also, you were saying before that Instagram, that's all business related, right?
Yes, and this is sort of until I have Jackie Bebenroth. That's my personal Instagram. I honestly, it's been like 6 months since I posted. I'm so embarrassed. So
I'm not
that's where
much
you can
better.
find me for now.
No, I love that. So, are there any last thoughts or feelings or anything that you'd love to leave with the audience that you'd love for them to remember?
Just that whole concept that change is cyclical, it's not linear, and so that idea of, like, how it's going,
Mhm.
that should always be top of mind, not before and after, and if you do get in a place where you have to take a few steps back on your progress to make a giant leap forward, just make sure you take some lessons learned, and there's no shame in that, right? So, yeah, keep it going.
Exactly. Well, Jackie, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been such a pleasure. I love your smile. I love your knowledge. And I love your concept on change because, well, I agree with you. So, yay.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show. I totally appreciate you being here, and hopefully you'll be back again.
Thank you, Julianne. It's been a pleasure.
And that is all the time that we have for now. So we will see you on Thursday. Enjoy your week, and we'll be back later.